Hey everyone, and welcome to the Defining Your Life podcast, where we focus on living in our purpose, practicing presence, and activating our power in each moment. I'm Marsha Rell, your resident pep talk provider, and I invite you to join me as we continue to learn, lift each other up, and strive to level up together. Because we are never finished defining our lives, and it takes a village, so let's build one. Stay tuned for the episode. Hey everyone, I hope that you are all doing well, that you've been taking care of yourself and are feeling fantastic. It's hard to believe that in just a few weeks, it is going to be 2025. And you'll probably hear me say this repeatedly until we hit the new year. But really, that's just because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And I'm sure some of you out there are feeling the same way that I'm feeling. Like this year has flown by. It's been crazy town. But I will say that 2025 is already shaping up to be an exciting year over here. So I'm really trying to mentally prepare myself for all that's to come and how to navigate that without feeling anxious, as I tend to do. And as we're winding down 2024, I want to continue to talk about the importance of looking after ourselves during this season of busyness and beyond, and as we prepare for new things that are on the horizon. You know, there's so much we need to do, so much we could be doing, so much we want to do. But in the midst of all that we are doing and want to do, okay, we cannot neglect the need to not do and also to focus. As you know, there is a time for everything. And if I can just go back to gardening for a moment, just bear with me. Y'all know I love me a garden. But there is certainly a time for planting, a time for picking and pruning and weeding, right? And these singular tasks all work together for the good of the garden. They serve a specific purpose in order that the garden might flourish. And even if you are doing the tasks around the same time, typically you're not doing these things simultaneously. It's one step at a time, right? And in a specific order in some instances. And so goes it in life. Right? If you are trying to do all of the things at the same time, it's almost guaranteed that you aren't going to be doing any of the tasks as well as you could. And if we are putting our time and our energy out there, it would make the most sense and be most rewarding for us to do the things we both need and want to do to the best of our ability. And that requires some discipline, right? Because when we're excited or overwhelmed or just trying to move on to the next thing, we tend to want to multitask so that we can just bang it all out. But the truth of the matter is multitasking is not effective. In fact, according to the American Psychological Association, in some instances, productivity can decrease by up to 40% by way of multitasking. Folks who multitask are also more prone to making mistakes. And we are already imperfect humans. We do not need any help making more mistakes, right? Now, you may be thinking that, this only applies to smaller things or on a smaller level, like listening to music and reading emails at the same time. And that may be harmless, but how much more efficient could you be if you trained yourself to get laser focused on that email without having any other noise crowding your mind? If you aren't used to it, it may be uncomfortable at first, but like anything, you have to train yourself. But let's think about multitasking more broadly today. Really just in the vein of, doing too much. Because that seems to be a theme around here lately, right? We all want so much and don't want to miss opportunities, or we want to get to the next thing. But that can result in us doing the most, and definitely not in a good way. So let's say you have 3 events to get to: a work event, a social event, and maybe an event for your kids. And you're trying to do all of that in the span of, say, about 5 hours, right? You want to pop your head in over here and then stop past over there before you get to your final destination of the evening. And while you aren't technically multitasking, you really are, right? Because how present are you in the first and second events? If you're anything like me, at the first event, you're watching your time because you have to get to the second event. And on your way to the second event, you're thinking about what you meant to say at the first event before you left and how much time you can stay at the second event before you have to move on to the third event and so on. You see what I mean? Like, how present are you? How present can you be when you're scurrying from here to there? Like you're constantly thinking about the next thing or tackling it at the same time, which is a form of multitasking. So whether, we're talking about hopping around to different tasks at work or attempting to do multiple things at the same time, or maybe trying to squeeze in multiple events in the same time frame, the common theme here is that we really need to free ourselves, right? Free our minds by doing one task or committing to one thing at a time and not 20. Because the reality is you can do all things, right? But you can't do them all well at the same time. I know. Why not? Why can't we do that? Well, the same way that we crave the undivided attention of others to build deeper connections with them, so then the tasks that we need to complete or the goals that we are aiming to achieve require our undivided attention to yield the best results possible. So let's take a moment then to pause and think about our most important tasks and goals. What's most important to you on any given day that you need to complete or get done? I know for me, when I think about it, there are a few tasks and then there are bigger goals. Now, the bigger goals end up being an issue if they haven't been broken down into micro goals yet, because then they stay on my list as a thing that I have yet to achieve. And when I'm so called working on that goal, nothing seems to be getting done because I might be all over the place with it, working on it a little in one area and then a little in another area. But really, a little here and a little there in no particular order equates to working, but never getting it done, right? And this form of multitasking will simply have your head spinning. And so even things that would work together to create a favorable result for a common goal end up being competing priorities because you have too much on your plate. You're at a 5-course dinner, but you asked to get the first 3 courses all at once. So not only is that plate not as enjoyable, you lose the taste and integrity of how it was supposed to be experienced in the first place. So let's think about the steps that we need to take in order to complete those tasks or meet our goals, right? Whatever they are. And let's also think about the way that we desire to show up right now and also moving into the new year, because we can start getting our energy together now and also begin allocating our time properly for the things we need and want to do in this next season. We want to honor our gifts and our goals by making the time to do them well, because our output is a reflection of who we really are. So make sure that your output is honoring you. And with that, let's chat about some things that we can do to retrain ourselves and reduce multitasking. So first, get your mind right? So getting into a focus flow is like a meditation of sorts. And when you first start meditating, it's challenging to keep your mind from drifting off in the middle of a session. The same is true when you sit down to complete a task or focus your attention solely on one thing. It's a muscle that we have to work and build. But we can prepare ourselves for the experience, right? If you struggle with focus, expect to drift off a time or two, but don't let yourself stay there. That's the important part. Even, ahead of sitting down to do the work, you want to give yourself what I'll call a talking to, right? This is what I'm here to do. This is what I want to accomplish. And I won't be bound by distraction. And when I feel myself drifting, I will pull myself back to the task at hand. This is me talking to myself, y'all. This is how you should be talking to yourself too, if you feel like you're drifting. And with enough practice, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to focus more. Secondly, commit to completion, right? And that just means for whatever you set out to do in that period of time. It may not be that you actually complete the thing in its entirety. But what it does mean is that you're not picking up another task in the middle of the one you're working on. That breaks the flow. And once the flow is broken, it's hard to get it back. If you are working on a deep focus project, do not click over and check email. If you're playing a game with your child or having a conversation in person with someone, do not check your phone. There was once a time, everyone, in our lifetime, if you're my age, that there were no cell phones. That's right. If you remember back far enough, and guess what happened? The earth still turned. We still got in contact with the people we needed to. And if it's bad news, it doesn't sound better coming out of a cell phone that you never put down. Our cell phones are certainly winning the war on focus. If you want to get focused, if you want to get something done, just put it away, because your phone allows you to be a perpetual multitasker. A friend actually just sent me a clip the other day of this speaker that I wish I had the details of right now. I'll try to dig it up. But essentially, he was saying that even the act of putting yourself face down on a table while you're at dinner with other people is sending the signal of your split focus, right? Because why does it need to be on the table if you're not concerned about what's happening behind that screen? The point is this. Stay focused on the sole task or thing in front of you for the allotted time by committing to completion and minimizing distractions. Lastly, I mentioned a list of important tasks earlier, but you want to make a list. Prioritize your tasks. What's most important? What can you take off of your list? What can you say no to? We've talked about that, right? When your priorities are clear, it makes it that much easier to stay focused solely on those things. So I'll leave you with a quote from Devorah Zach today. She says, "You can either do one thing well or two things poorly at any given moment." Now, that's definitely food for thought, y'all. If you have a choice, which do you choose? When you are doing a couple things poorly, you'll never be more than mediocre at them. And mediocre at best doesn't sound appealing to me. Not when we have a choice and an opportunity to be better than that, right? I don't want to be a mediocre parent or spouse because I'm splitting my attention with something else, or a mediocre entrepreneur because I'm not investing the appropriate time. I don't want to be a mediocre employee either, because if I'm showing up and giving a place a gazillion hours of myself, my behavior in that space is definitely shaping me. And that mediocre energy that we may bring to work because it's a job we don't care about will 100% bleed over into other areas in our lives. Multitasking has a huge impact that we may not initially recognize, and the result of being successful at it is not a better version of ourselves. So let's leave it behind, y'all, and start refocusing on what matters most. And if it matters most to you, it deserves your undivided attention. Thanks so much for listening today. You can share your feedback with us by sending us a text. The link is in the show notes. You can also email us at timetodefineyourlife@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram or TikTok at Defining Your Life. And I can't wait to chat with you all again next week. Take care until then.